Hey y'all, welcome back to All Bases Covered with Mackenzie Alexander. You're probably thinking, Mackenzie, you look a little different. Yeah, we haven't done an episode ever since I cut my hair. So, yeah, my hair is gone, but I like it a lot more. But besides the point, today's guest, I'm super excited for. Another woman in sports. One of my good friends. She's an LSU beach volleyball player. She transferred from Pepperdine University. She played there for her freshman year, and that's in Malibu, California, for those who don't know. And actually, fun fact, Zoe 101 was filmed there, so pretty cool place. Gracey's been playing for a total of 15 years now. 10 if we're talking like actual tournament, wise, but 15 in total. She's from Corinth, Texas. She loves God. Her faith is everything to her and her sport. So yeah, just a great friend, great person, great athlete. She now goes to LSU, and she came here this year. She's transfer, so got the pleasure to meet her while she's been here, and I'm super excited. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gracey Campbell.
Hi.
Hey Gracey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited. You had exams today, right?
I have an exam after this, actually.
Student athlete. It's fun life, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Gotta love it.
Yeah. All right, Gracey, let's just, get right into it. Obviously you've been playing total 15 years, 10 tournament-wise, like I said in the intro. What has your journey been like? Have you always knew you wanted to go play in college, or what was that like?
Yeah, so my mom was a high school volleyball coach when I was born. So I just kind of grew up in the gym. Um, Very just always been around volleyball. So I just kind of fell in love with it from a young age. Um, but I think the earliest memory I can think of just like knowing what I wanted was 2012 Olympics, watching Misty May and Carrie Walsh play beach volleyball, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So I think before even like thinking about college, it was like, I'm going to go to the Olympics, like a little kid, just super excited about the sport. So that's probably the first memory I can think of.
Yeah, we talked about, and you said, like, obviously the Olympics is, like, one of the biggest sports in the Olympics is beach volleyball. So, like, obviously that's something that's always meant a lot to you. Being a woman in sport, what is, like, the biggest adversity you probably have faced?
Um, for me personally, I think the thing that I've dealt with the most is just putting my identity in my sport. So just putting a lot of weight on wins, losses, even winning and just like not feeling like I played like the best to my ability. Um, I think just getting kind of lost in the fact that like you can really find your identity in that, and obviously that's not where we find our identity. Ultimately, we find that in Jesus Christ. So definitely had a journey of just kind of like really getting lost in that, and then actually through COVID when everything was kind of taken away from me, literally like couldn't play, couldn't practice, couldn't work out, any of the things. God showed me that I have a lot of other talents and a lot of other things, and that I'm not just a volleyball player. I'm a daughter of a king. So
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that. We said that it's so important that you don't find your identity in your sport, because what happens when you have a bad game? What happens when maybe it's not just a bad game, maybe it's a bad few games, and then you're super hard on yourself, your mental health goes completely low. It's really hard. And I think a lot of athletes, they don't realize that their sport is just what they play, it's not who they are. And so it's really good that you kind of know that, because it's better for you to learn that early on in your sport than to figure that out way later when you can save yourself a bunch of like heartbreak.
for sure, yeah.
All right, so let's get into your journey with volleyball kind of. So you played volleyball in middle school and high school?
I was homeschooled, but yeah, I played for like a homeschool team. Um, like I started playing like rec volleyball and just kind of playing with my mom, and then I started playing homeschool volleyball like sixth, seventh, eighth grade. In eighth grade, I played for like our varsity team, so I was like always playing up with like a lot of older girls from a very young age. So yeah, and then I ended up playing for public school for 2 years as well, my junior and senior year.
So you being that eighth grader, with all those people who are older, obviously that meant that you have the asset they're looking to bring to the team and they have skills. Did there ever come a time though where you were like doubtful or if that had you like second thinking about you being there?
No.
No.
No, not really. I think that's like I was kinda saying with, like, finding your identity in it, like, it's the thing that I'm most confident about with myself is, like, I know I can play volleyball. So, like, I think I never thought about it then, just being like, "I'm so happy I get to play with all these really good girls," you know?
Yeah. The relationships you built, obviously, those are probably relationships you still have till this day. What is it like to be surrounded by girls just love the same thing you do? That is their life. Finding friends in the industry and in being a student athlete. What is that like?
I think it's just really beautiful. It's always nice to be around like-minded people, you know, that's why you love your church, you love your family, that kind of thing. I think it's the same with, like, a team, like, my team here at LSU, like, man, I could not be more thankful. They are just, like, amazing, they really do feel like family, and, I feel like a lot of teams are, like there's, like, 1 or 2 you don't get along with or what but, like, that's just not the case here. We're very thankful, for that, but, yeah, it's just great to be surrounded by people who constantly push you to be better at your sport as like, a student and, like, at your faith. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at LSU and they're like, "Why are they so successful?" Like why do they have so much success on like in like almost every sport? And I think people miss the whole idea of like success isn't built on the numbers or the stats or the wins. It's built on the trust in each other. And if
Mhm.
you look at every sport at an LSU, almost every single team is very close. I mean, you look at the baseball team, they are super close. Like they're the best of friends, great brotherhood. You look at gymnastics, great friends, all
Mhm.
hang out, all like-minded, all those things. You look at beach volleyball, you all go through the same kind of hell together. So of course it brings you closer together. So I think a lot of people will miss like the fact of like we're not just good because like talent wise, we're good because we put our trust in each other.
Yep, for sure.
Do you think trust is like important when it comes to a foundation?
Yeah, I was actually just telling my mom this the other day. I was like, "It's probably a poor example, but I feel like you're going into battle with these girls or against other schools. Like you really are. And so like there's just a level of trust of like I know that we have a bench of 24 or we have a team of 24 people and only 10 play. But I know that if you throw any one of the 24 out there, like we're gonna put on a show and like you can trust that person to go perform. And I think it's really great to be able to know that like I could trust anyone on my team for that and for anything else.
Wow, I love that for you. Let's rewind a little bit. So after you obviously, were done with high school playing public and homeschool, you decided to go to Pepperdine for your freshman year,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you made great friendships there. You learned a lot about yourself from what you told me. But obviously you ultimately did transfer for a reason. What was kind of the reason you felt like you wanted to transfer, and maybe what was the biggest lesson that you learned at Pepperdine?
As you mentioned with Zoe 101, Pepperdine is beautiful. Definitely enjoyed my time there. You can't beat being right by the beach. But I think the thing that attracted me there in the first place was the fact that it's a Church of Christ school, so you're getting a faith based education, and that was like the thing that was most important to me in my recruiting process. Was getting a solid foundation for my education. And so that, and then on top of, they were also number 5 in the nation when I committed there. Because I committed as a freshman in high school to Pepperdine before the rule change. So I think that was what attracted me there, was just like, oh, wow, the volleyball is really good. The coach is awesome. He's an Olympic coach. He coached Carrie Walsh and Missy May. He's amazing. Uh, but I think my time there, the more I was there, I just realized it wasn't as good of a fit as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Um, there definitely wasn't a whole lot of areas for me to grow my faith or just to pursue it. Like, I never really found a church. Um, I think with it being a faith based education there, it kind of is looked at like a chore more because it's just like within the program or within the school. So it's just kind of like there's a negative like connotation around it. Um, and that was just kind of frustrating to deal with. So honestly, that was one of the biggest things. And then also, I just didn't feel like I clicked as well as I wanted to with the volleyball team. And like I said, just didn't really feel like my place. So I hopped into the transfer portal.
I think it's a testament as to something can look picture perfect. It can look like everything you want. It can be beautiful. It can have all the shiny things. It can be by the beach. It can be all these different types of things you are looking for. But no one really knows until you actually get there and you play the sport and you're in the midst of it and you're like, yeah, it's not what it seems.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So you got in the transfer portal.
Mhm.
And you ultimately told me you had kind of relationships with LSU coaches growing up. They've been watching you from a very young age, things like that. So did you always have LSU in the back of your mind?
Yeah, the first time around, like when I was a freshman in high school, my top three were definitely Pepperdine, FSU, LSU, and UCLA. Those were the ones I was just like, oh my gosh. But funny enough, my mom was actually a tiger in college. That was her mascot, and they were purple and gold as well. So I've always just been like kind of attracted to the idea of being a tiger. And the school, I think the thing that scared me about it the first time around was just coming from being a homeschooler to jumping into LSU, which is humongous. I mean, Pepperdine is only, 3,000 students. Here it's a million times that, like it's so much bigger. And so I think that was kind of what steered me away from the other schools in general. But yeah, as you mentioned, like I'd always loved that Russell and Katie were strong in their faith. And it's just so evident, like it just glows off of them. So through that, just like fun conversations here and there at tournaments or when they'd watch me play, like kind of got to connect with them in that regard, which just made me like them even more. So yeah.
Yeah, you brought up when it comes to faith, Katie and Russell, they're really big in their faith and it showed through and things like that, which I'm sure already just makes the program better than it already is when you have somebody who's a God-fearing coach. I just talked about this with when I was covering the AAC championship. Rhett Lashley, who's head coach of SMU, his wife, I was interviewing her and she just said, like, he's a God-fearing coach. And so it makes the biggest difference in the world because he doesn't look at coaching as just a coaching gig. He looks at it as like mentoring and discipling them. And, we talked about like it really sucks when a coach makes you hate your sport or it's just really nasty. And it's like that is supposed to be the one that's supposed to champion you and like, uplift you. And so that's really good that they are like that.
Oh yeah. They definitely, the thing I tell people who are interested in coming here, specifically for the beach volleyball program, I'm like, our coaching staff is going to push you to be a better person, even more so than like they'll focus more on you being a better person than even a better athlete, because ultimately when you're done with sports, like you still have to live with yourself and they know that. So like that's why they push us to be good academically and to find something and better our faith.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, we have a thing called FCA here at LSU. Gracey is a part of it. She's actually the one who introduced me into it, if we're being like real. But it's Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It says athletes, but it's really welcome to like really anyone who wants to come and like explore it. Learn that kind of the hard way. I told Gracey, I was like, well, I'm not an athlete. I don't think I should go. She's like, it doesn't matter. Like, just come. So I did end up going, but FCA is amazing, and I would just say, like, if you have one at your school, which a lot of schools have them, right, Gracey?
Yeah, they do. Almost every school does.
Yeah, I would say, get involved, and obviously, like, Gracey can talk more about it, but it's just a great way for you to stay, in your faith and pursue Jesus while being an athlete, because if we're being real here, it can be really hard. I've talked to so many athletes where it's like temptations, all these things, being prideful, whatever the temptation may be. But yeah, Grace, can I talk about FCA a little bit and how it's helped you here with your time at LSU so far?
So I actually jumped into FCA here on campus a little bit later. probably like midway through the semester. I kept wanting to go and just like honestly putting it off because I was like, oh, a classic student athlete is really busy. But one like random day when I was out just getting extra shots at the court, uh, I met the head of FCA and he's like, you need to come out. And so I finally did. And it was amazing. Like just the people who are involved in it. I made a lot of friends. Actually babysit for them now too. Like, just you get to make some really cool connections. And I think the people who run it, every FCA, they're going to be great people who can mentor you and lead you in the right direction and just answer questions. Cause I feel like a lot of the times, like I just have questions and they've lived life. So like they can give me the answers that I need.
Yeah, Gracie, did you get to go to the FCA like conference with like David Pollock? Did you go to that one?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, David Pollock, which those of you who don't know, David Pollock, he was a former first round draft pick for the Georgia Bulldogs, and then, or he went to Georgia, and he was a former first round draft pick. He actually like broke his neck, like completely paralyzed. I'm pretty sure, like, or I can't remember the exact like situation, but basically where he couldn't play the sport anymore, and he kind of talked about the conference, how just like it changed his life. And FCA is the one who kind of put it on and brought him. And so that's just a testament of like what FCA like is and like how like transformational they actually can be in your life. Because the first time I went to FCA and like went to the conference, I was like, whoa, it's so cool to be around like-minded people. And like it's really hard to find it's not hard to find friends that aren't in sports or that aren't in the same kind of ministry when it comes to sports and things like that. It's just with the time schedules and with, the schedule within just, you can say, a non-athlete and an athlete, it's very hard. Or, in my case, being in media and you being an athlete, things like that. It's just like sometimes it's harder to find time to like commit to the friendship.
Oh yeah.
And so FCA is really good about that because you get to all come together. We got to go to the Friendsgiving and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to LSU, and when was like the moment you think that you realized like this is the place? Like I made the right decision.
That's a really good question. I think my coaches even said this. I think it was kind of like righting a wrong. Like I think, this is my place. It always has been. I just kind of got sidetracked. And it sounds kind of corny, but like the moment I got here and all of the entire coaching staff showed up to help me move in and like talk to my family, remembered my siblings' names. Like all these things are just very personable and immediately just felt like home. So I think that, and then also just realizing how much they prioritize faith. So like pretty quickly into the semester, I was like, oh wow, like, these girls are going to FCA, we're going to Refuge, we're having a team Bible study and all these things. And I was just like, man, I love that I don't have to like work extra hard to prioritize this. Like it's a priority with my team. And that just made it feel even more homey.
Yeah. You mentioned the small things like remembering the siblings, first names, things like that. Like, what does that mean to you?
I mean, obviously family is the most important thing to me. So just like to see that, they can remember, like I have 3 siblings and they were like itty bitty the last time they saw them. So it's just kind of interesting to think that like, wow, like, they follow me on social media and that kind of stuff too. But just to see that like they care enough about something that is important to me. And like that shows like that's such a greater like love and appreciation than anything else ever could be. So
Yeah. When it comes to LSU, you said that, you were homeschooled, things like that. So it's going from like a whole different environment to literally like so many people, so many new things. What was it? How did being homeschooled kind of, it's not affect your childhood, but like, I guess, mold you into the person you are today?
I think it I think it prepared me in a lot of ways that you don't get prepared for just going through a regular public school system. Like I always had to be my own encourager. Like I definitely had to like push myself to get my own stuff done. Like, cause there's no one over my shoulder telling me like, hey, do this, do that. Like I had to do it. So I was very self-motivated. It taught me to be organized and those kind of things. I think that like the downside of it was just that like it's hard to, make friends or like find a community that's like very understanding of like, especially for me, like, I was homeschooling because my dad makes movies and he travels all over the place. I moved 12 times in my childhood, and I was competing at a very high level. So like I couldn't be in public school. I had to homeschool. So I think there were a lot of pros, but getting to college, just like realizing, and as stupid as it sounds, like just learning how to like literally like make friends or like know how to not feel like socially awkward, because it's just new. Like everything's new. Being in a classroom with this many people is new, or like that kind of thing was, I think, harder than you would anticipate.
Yeah. You said you compete at a very high level. Can you kind of tell the people like, what level you're competing at, and kind of walk them through kind of, the tournaments you went to, and how that all started?
Yeah, so pretty right off the bat after starting beach volleyball, and then transferring into that full time, because for a while I did both indoor and beach. Um, every summer there's like multiple national championships. You got Rocks national championships, AAUs, JOs, NVL, all these national tournaments that are just like the best of the best come to compete, and they're huge, huge tournaments. Everyone from across the country come and compete. But from a very young age, just won national championships. I won a Rocks national championship, NBL national championship, um, top 3 in AAU twice, second at AAU another year, second at JOs. I have had the experience. I have the time and the medals to show for it. But I think just I say a high level because of that, but also just I've always played up, like I mentioned before with indoor volleyball, with homeschooling, but I also did that for beach. So I would, I was 14 and I would play 3 tournaments in 2 days. One time I actually played a 16U tournament and an 18U tournament at the same time at the same facility on 2 different sides of the facility. So I'd run back and forth, and I played, I think, 17 matches in one day. It was crazy, but and I placed in both. So like that's just kind of my point, is that like I have played with a whole lot of different people, but I've always managed to pull out a win some way, somehow.
Yeah. I played volleyball too. I played beach volleyball, but I played volleyball for quite some time. And I can kind of get the whole like, matches. Like that's a lot of matches. If y'all don't know, like that is a crap ton. Like I think after 6, I was like, I'm done. Like I was, because you're dead. And me and Grace were talking about this, and this might be like kind of something I didn't know, but maybe some of you don't know either. But beach volleyball is very different because it's not as many people on the court. And
Mm-hmm.
so it requires more work out of you. And Grace, I guess you can kind of tell them like, what is the difference between volleyball and beach volleyball?
Well, the obvious difference is that beach volleyball is 2 versus 2, and then indoor volleyball is 6 versus 6. So in beach volleyball, you have like a blocker and a defender, and in indoor, you have 6 different positions. So it's just a little different.
Yeah, you're a defender, right? So obviously you're getting down. You're gonna have to, hurt yourself a little bit. What is like the most memorable like tournament you have where like it was just like you risked your life to get down there to get that ball, or like just something that you like had to do in a tournament?
Um, One time you might not know, but they have like at beach volleyball tournaments, they have like ball stops.
Okay.
They're usually like between courts on the side and then the back. And one time at like nationals, and this is funny too because LSU was actually watching this match. But my partner got a block touch, and then she like played it up, but she played it like past the ball stop. And so I ran all the way past the ball stop and played it back up and over the net. So I like ran, and then I like my dad took a screenshot, and like I'm literally parallel like flying in the sky to get the ball over the net. That's probably the most memorable one.
You said LSU was watching that?
Yeah, LSU, FSU, and TCU were all watching.
They were like, that girl would go to like wit's end to go get that ball.
Yeah, balls to the wall, you know.
Yeah. So as much as obviously, you know, all these trophies and tournaments and all these things have been so great and everything, sometimes there's a side people really don't get to see, and that's, you know, like we talked about kind of in the beginning, you know, the mental health side of it, putting identity in your sport. When it comes to mental health, I think we've kind of talked about this before, but what were the resources that were there to help you when it came to mental health, and maybe at LSU that helps you with mental health?
I think the first thing I probably turn to is my mom. She's just like the wisest person on the planet. And she also was a two-sport D2 athlete. So she did basketball and volleyball in college. So, like, she gets it. But I think here at LSU, like, just like anything else as an athlete here, like, there's so much at our disposal. And we have, like, you know, um, like get your mind right, mental health meeting kind of things, like sports psych, like, you know, a couple times a week before practice. And like, I think that's just like a good reminder of like, you know, visualization, realizing you know, it is what you want it to be. And so like just that kind of constant reminder that like, especially mental health regarding volleyball, it doesn't have to be as crazy. Like it calms you down to just talk to somebody about it. So I think having sports psych here is amazing. They're very good at talking to us about everything.
How important is taking care of your mental health as an athlete?
It is more important than I think anything else, because volleyball as a sport, and this goes for a lot of sports, but beach volleyball in general, like, is 90% mental. Like, you know, if your mind is not there, like, you're just not going to perform well. So I think keeping your mind healthy, keeping your mind just aware that, like, you know, because when you're 20 hours and you have exams and homework due at midnight and you have to be up at 5:30 the next morning, and then you have a lift and you have to find time to eat, like, it gets crazy, and sometimes like your mind and like just kind of gets lost in the mix. So prioritizing, like for me, that's, you know, reading my Bible, making sure I get in the Word every day, um, talking to my siblings, something that's just like very grounding. Really helps with like the mental health side.
You brought up grounding, and you brought up being in the Word every day, you know, having that as an anchor. Would you just say that, like, when it comes to like peace and just kind of renewing the mind and helping you see things from a different lens, you know, God's helped you a lot?
Yes, 100%. I owe it all to God. You know, He gave me this passion and this love for this sport. Um, so ultimately, like, you know, all of it is His. You know, and I think you've said this before too. You know, like the sports is your ministry, and I definitely agree with that. For me, like, you know, God's given me this stage to be able to play and perform at a high level, and like it's my job to use that to light for the kingdom and help grow the kingdom. But a way that I try, and it doesn't happen every day, I'm not going to fake it and say that it does, but I really do try to get in the Word every day. Trying to go through the New Testament right now. And I just noticed that I feel like so much clearer in my head when I read the Bible. And I just know that that's like, because that's my way of connecting, is that and prayer, obviously. But I just feel so much more at peace with myself and my mind when I get in the Word.
Yeah, and I think people sometimes are like, why do like all these people always talk about Jesus? I'm like, why are these people always like raving about this Jesus guy and all these things? But it's like, if you knew what like God could do for your life, like And I think so many people are like really like used to religion and not relationship because there's a clear difference. And when it comes to very tough times in your life, you don't rely on religion. You rely on relationship, like intimate, personal relationship with like our Lord and Savior. Like as cheesy as that sounds, probably as much as people hear it, like it changes everything. And
Mhm.
because is like when people focus on religion and like the do's and don'ts and like why he says not to do certain things or just certain things like that, then they're like, well, this is like not fun, like all these things. But if we look at it from a different lens of like this is for our good and like this is meant to help us and this is meant to help renew our minds, like why wouldn't everything want that? Because it literally is like this generation is just looking for help. We're looking for a way to find love, a way to find different things. And I mean, he is the cornerstone for love. So,
Oh, for sure. I definitely think our generation is seeking like instant gratification just because of like, how we've been raised. And I think more of the people younger than us, even, but just like, growing up with like the certain technology that we have and just like kind of the way the world's revolving now, like, just it's crazy that there is like really an emptiness and a lot of people that they just don't realize that like what this world can give you to attempt to fill that, like
yeah.
it's never gonna work. um and so it's cool. That's why I like having the ability to talk about these things.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been great, Gracie. Such a fruitful conversation, and I feel like anyone that's watching, and maybe is an athlete, and kind of wants to check out faith, or even kind of just take any type of lesson that you gave today in this conversation, I feel like it's going to do good to them, and super excited for what God's going to do with you at LSU in this season. Speaking of the season, when can people come watch beach volleyball?
So our season is in the spring and it officially starts like mid-February and then ends the first weekend of May. That's nationals in Gulf Shores. So we're pretty hot and heavy for about 8 weeks. So come catch a game.
Awesome. Well, go do that, guys. All right. Thank you, Gracie. I appreciate it. It was a blast.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys. And thank you for Area Insurance for partnering with us on today's video.